Welcome to Changing the Sales Game podcast on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. As always, thanks so much for joining us this week. And I hope every week as you listen, I don't think you cannot feel my passion about changing that word sales of something that's icky, sleazy, and manipulative, really so that we're serving our clients and our prospects from that perspective of love, care, and respect. And if you're not doing it that way, please stop because you're doing it wrong, right? So to help you on that mindset shift journey, right, going from that sales is icky to sales is something of service, I have a free gift for you. Go to my website and you'll get my free communication style assessment. You get literally a report showing your natural communication superpowers. And you also get a little report about your blind spot or your lowest style, which I feel oftentimes is where our biggest growth comes from. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA, my free gift to you to help you on your journey. Now, my motivational quote today is by Paul Ryan. And Paul says, "Behind every small business, there's a story worth knowing. All the corner shops in our towns and cities, the restaurants, cleaners, gyms, hair salons, hardware stores, these don't come out of nowhere." Now, I'm asked all the time, Con, why'd you start your business? And for me, it was really about gaining control, of course, of my time, my income, and being able to choose really to serve others in a bigger way than what corporate had allowed me. Over the past 20 years, working with corporate clients as well as business owners directly, it's really become clear to me that owning a business is a calling. And we choose the uncertainty of that steady paycheck or that market fluctuation that we all face, new technologies that come to market, and the list of uncertainty just goes on. So why do we choose this path? Because we're crazy, right? In a good way. Well, today, of course, I have an expert guest, and my guest is Dr. Dale Caldwell. Now, Dale and I are going to dig in and discuss challenges small businesses face and really the future of entrepreneurship. Now, Dr. Dale is the executive director of the FDU Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He has become an important voice for entrepreneurs here in New Jersey, and he graduated from Princeton University, received his MBA from Wharton School, and a doctorate from Seton Hall. So please help me welcome my amazing guest, Dale, to the show. Dale, thank you for being on.
Hey, Connie, it's wonderful to be on your show. I've really grown to admire you and all the great things, great information you share with so many people. So thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. And same to you. Dale's doing amazing things out there, which we're going to hear about today so that you can find him, connect with him, and really leverage the information that he's sharing and all the great things you're doing out there in the marketplace. So first question, share with everybody your backgrounds, because you do have a very interesting background.
Well, I like to begin with my dad, who passed away in September of 2020, but he knew in March with Dr. King, and so I grew up around the civil rights movement. My mom, who's 87, who lives with me now, was a teacher for 50 years. So I grew up around people that cared about people. And so, I went to some expensive schools, as you heard, and wanted to use that to really develop those skills to see how can I help, really very much like you, Connie, how can I help people be better at what they do, but also live better lives?
And can I tell you, right, Dale, that's the name of the game, making a living and building a business, right? And building a family, that's all so important. But if we don't have happiness built in and we're not serving, we're kind of like just falling flat, right? I think on our responsibility to our communities, right? And whatever that means to everybody, because this is, right, a global show. Talk about and explain, what is the FDU Rothman Institute, Fairleigh Dickinson University Rothman Institute?
Well, I've been at Fairleigh Dickinson University for over 3 years. And so this Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship was founded about 32 years ago, really focusing on working with family businesses, working with veteran businesses, working with student entrepreneurs, and working with urban entrepreneurs. And so our focus is really to support their growth and develop, to research around them. And we really have become an important voice for them because, as you know, small businesses are often overlooked by the powers that be, and yet they're the key to the growth of every economy in the world.
Now, being in the university venue and working with young entrepreneurs, there's a lot of kids that are starting businesses while in college and university. Are you seeing a little bit of an uptick in that? Let me tell you why I'm asking that question, Dale, because I find this younger generation, they're so much more courageous. You're a peer, right? We're peers. I
Right.
find
Right.
them to be really courageous and not afraid to step into the unknown. Are you seeing that at the university level too?
The amazing thing is I'm seeing that the interest in entrepreneurship has never been higher. And so young people want to start their own businesses. They're inspired by Instagram and all the social media. But the challenge is a lot of the old heads who are politicians are doing things that actually hurt entrepreneurship and hurt this gig economy, this idea of individuals doing it. So part of what we're doing as a university is really trying to be the voice to the powers that be to say, hey, these folks want to be entrepreneurs. Let's make it easier to be an entrepreneur so that the innovation can really help to fuel society and create jobs and create wealth.
Yeah, and I think at that younger age, we're not, and I want to use the right word here. I don't want to offend anybody, but we're not damaged. It's probably still not the right word. We're not. There's still an element of society programming them right through school, parents, grandparents, churches, all of those things. But I still think there's an element of this purity with this younger generation that we haven't, because they haven't been in the, quote unquote work environment, corporate, whatever the venue is, that they're clean slates. So their innovation, I think they could tap into it faster than maybe somebody like me at my age. I don't know. What do you think? What do you see?
Absolutely. And the example I often use is skiing. I was learning how to ski late in life. And people said, Dale, you're a good athlete. Just go up there. You can ski. But they started skiing when they were very, very young. And what happens is when you start young, you're not scared of failure. You start to do that. You don't care about falling down. You'll get up and so on. But us older heads will sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to break a leg. I'm not going to do this. And that's the thing, same thing with entrepreneurship. Is that young people, don't know what they don't know. And so they try things and they take risks and they succeed. Whereas old people say, well, Joe failed in his business, so I don't want to fail in my business. And so, but we have to revive that entrepreneurial spirit, which again is fueling really, really success and financial independence.
And with COVID now, I think the door to entrepreneurship actually expanded because people all of a sudden that like I was never on Zoom. Well, I was on Zoom, but not to the extent I'm on Zoom now, that you become an expert in this daily technology that we're using now. It's just part of how we do business. It's how we communicate. It's how we have meetings. So all of a sudden, this whole global world, I think, opened in an instant. And I know it wasn't in an instant. And because the kids are so technologically aware, I think that there's a lot of new tech innovation coming from that generation. I don't know. Do you see that at the university level too?
Absolutely. There's a lot of tech innovation, but there are a lot of innovations on low tech stuff too. And I think sometimes that, there's so much focus on the sexy tech that I met a young woman yesterday. I had a great conversation. She was referred to me who's developed, has a cleaning business and developed these natural cleaners that on her own, just natural cleaners and got it registered. And Shark Tank called her up. And so she turned them down and said, I'm not ready. But Shark Tank called her up because she's inventing these products. But then now with technology and social media and other things, there's so many opportunities. And frankly, it's fun. To me, it's just so exciting to do things differently in a new way. And I think that's what fuels this entrepreneurial growth.
And it's funny, Dale, because when COVID hit, right, I think like you, we did everything live, right? I spoke live. My clients everything was live, right? We networked live, we did everything live. Right. And then all of a sudden the world's closed. And I remember I was taking classes and learning technology and trying to perfect my Zoom skills again, right? Because I'm thinking, wow, I see it's here. I have to pivot, make sure that your arms, my own development. And I would remember tired at the end of the day of all this learning. I'd go upstairs and my husband said, how's it going? And I'm like, I really don't know a lot of stuff. So it's so fascinating because when we're forced to jump into a realm that just hasn't been our focus, right? Like that technology was never my focus because I did everything live. Then all of a sudden you're thrown in the deep end. You figure it out fast. but I was invigorated by it too. And my husband says, I haven't seen you this as exhausted as I was with the learning piece of it. I was so energized because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I could do this and I could do this and I could do that. And again, I think like my brain was in business mode, but it was like the same old, same old. And
Right.
now I felt like I had this new kick, right? That I had a new way that I could approach things and learn and grow my business onto a global marketplace, not just the East Coast in the United States. So fascinating. I don't know. Did you have that kind of shift?
Well, absolutely. And I'll confess that early on before the pandemic, I would get all these invites to talk on Zoom. And it really annoyed me because I just on the phone. I don't want to, we don't need to see each other. We don't need to do that. So I really was annoyed by Zoom. But then with the pandemic, it opened up. I created something called the Black Inventors Hall of Fame and the Black Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame to record some incredible people that have been forgotten in history. Yeah. And we took a year to plan it via Zoom with people across the country and did in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the 100th anniversary of that race massacre. We actually had a ceremony and we were planning it, and about 20 of us. And the first time we met in person, Connie, was the day before that event. So we had never, it was all Zoom every week. Fridays at 1:30. We still have the call at 1:30. We had a call and the power. And so the other thing that I don't think we've even fully taken advantage of the Zoom and other video technologies, because the 20-80 rule, the 20% of the people, 80% of the work. Yeah. Well, what we do is we have regular calls, and that 80% that doesn't want to work drops off. So you get a call with the 20% from around the world, and you can really get stuff done with really like-minded people. And I think when all is said and done, you're going to find all sorts of things that have come out because of the ability of good people to connect in ways they couldn't before.
It's so true. And it's funny because, prior to 2020, my clients were all corporate, and then just going through the networking, you and I are just really good at networking. It's kind of like what we've done our whole life. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden I'm meeting with all these small business owners around the world, and they were like, can you help me with this? And I was like, oh my gosh, of course, like never dawned on me that they would need my help, because see, the thought process, shame on me, right? And this again is where those perspective shifts happen in our own thinking. I assumed, well, they're business owners. I'm a business owner. They know how to sell their stuff. Right. But they're really good at, and whatever their zone of genius is, right? Whether it's building ink cartridges or it's a coaching person, how to scale your business to 7 figures. That doesn't mean that they're really good in their own sales. They know their product, their service, but are they good at delivering the sales conversation? And I was finding that they know they're leaving money on the table, but they're not sure where, because their expertise wasn't in sales. So it was so fascinating to all of a sudden people asking me questions. And I was like, you're not doing that? Thinking, well, you're a business owner too. So again, that shift in perspective, I think, is truly valuable when these events happen in life.
They're so valuable. And you're right. And it forced us to really get out of our traditional thinking. Yes. Even those of us like yourself and I, we're innovators naturally. We're naturally innovators, but you still find yourself in a rut that you don't even know you're in, till you get shaken up like we did.
I know I used to say with COVID, I go, we're all in the snow globe and it's just shaking and shaking. We're waiting for that snow to land, right? So it was because every day was like, what's next, right? What's new? You learn to be fluid during 2020 for sure, right? Or you had a really rough year. Next question. So now I'm curious, how does the Institute help entrepreneurs? Because you mentioned the younger, you mentioned veterans, right? How do you guys support the local businesses?
Well, and originally it was just local businesses, but there's just building on our Zoom and discussion. So we have a program called Veterans Launching Ventures, focused on veterans and their family businesses. And so before the pandemic, we would have an in-person class with about 20 different veterans from New Jersey. They'd come in. It's a great program, 8-week program. But Zoom forced us to go. The pandemic forced us to go on Zoom. So we actually took advantage of that, and now we are serving veterans, then we were serving veterans in 25 states and 3 countries on our program. It's a 9-week program of we talk about everything from marketing to finance to operations to all the nuts and bolts, and help people develop a business plan and present their business plan. But Connie, that had been so successful but that the VA, there's an article in the Veterans Administration newsletter that went viral. And so we went from 50 applications to 500 applications, and really in like 3 or 4 days. So what we've done, we've expanded the program to have a class, to have a webinar. I do a coaching program. And so we've really become one of the largest veteran entrepreneurship programs in the country. And so, one of the things I'd love to talk to you about is that we're now in the process of figuring out how do we get someone to sponsor this, because it's all free. It's all free for the veterans. So, so that sales that you're an expert in is really selling, corporate sponsorships, that's sales. And so that kind of stuff. And so that's good. So the family businesses I have a show called Family Business World where I interview family businesses. We do the New Jersey Annual Family Business of the Year Awards. This was our 29th. And so just amazing businesses, over 10 million in sales, under 10 million in sales, and new family businesses. We have a student entrepreneurship competition that actually goes to the state. We call it FDU pitch, and it's you pitch. And so you compete against Princeton and Rutgers and Montclair and Seton Hall and others on their entrepreneurial programs. And then finally, the thing that I'm kind of most proud of is people know the opportunity zone legislation where investors can get tax breaks to build nice buildings in urban areas. What I've created is something called the Entrepreneur Zone, and we convinced the governor and the head of the NJ Economic Development Authority, Tim Sullivan, to adopt this idea. And the idea is to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurial businesses in economically challenged areas or on Main Street so that they can grow and develop in the community where they are, that are currently struggling, and really have something we call co-opetition, where they're competing, but they work together as a unit, and we can get funding and support and consulting. And I may ask you to be involved with some of the sales training for them as well. And so this Entrepreneur Zone thing that we're now trying to do across the country is really growing.
I love it. And just as you were speaking, this is what popped into my head. So I'm the type that pops in my head. Dale, you're going to hear my comment. You're going to hear my thought. I don't know if you watch any HGTV, but there's one particular show, Hometown it's called, and it's with Ben and Erin. They're a husband and wife team. Okay. And he's a woodworker, she's a designer, and they repurpose, like if they break into the wall and the wood could be saved. So they're all about refurbishing, reusing, right? And being good to our planet. So I just love that aspect. But they started, 10 years ago, and it was funny because HGTV found them kind of similar scenario, like you're saying, to some extent. But anyway, what they started doing is working with business owners on Main Street and renovating the internal and external, vision of the buildings, et cetera. And then they started with the houses, and little by little, it was a movement for them that they wanted to give back to their community. And now they're probably multimillionaires, but their initial intent was not necessarily to become these, iconic players on HGTV. But giving back to their local community, which had a lot of poverty and a lot of closed businesses. And now they're thriving, right? And people are moving there, and people are trying to duplicate what they did in, Laurel, Mississippi. So it's that same concept that if we put effort and focus into something, and, it starts with one little speck, right? The ripple, you put the pebble in the pond, but what are those long-term ripple effects that we can create and really be part of? I think in this, anything's possible now. I don't know. Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. And part of it, I've become really evangelical about, and so my team is really just three of us, Maura Panuski and Sue Slavin, the Rothman team. And so we're working we love partnerships, but we need to be evangelical about this idea of entrepreneurship because of what you're saying. And I'd love to connect with those folks because Main Street, and if you step back and look at history, you see things repeating itself. So Main Street was killed by the malls. Yes. The malls are being killed by the internet. And so now there's an opportunity for Main Street to come back with entrepreneurship, because what happened is a lot of these small businesses can't afford the big downtowns. So Main Street they can afford. We can renovate it. We'd love to have that kind of a family to do that. And so you can start looking, and in urban areas there are opportunities, but small business has to be a collaboration now. See, the idea of either you're going to make it, Connie, or I'm going to make it it has to die on the vine now. And that's why these entrepreneur zones, it's like, let's come together as entrepreneurs, support each other, create jobs, and really grow our community. And that resonates more than ever. And frankly, small businesses have always been that way. But the narrative on TV and other things is that they're cutthroat and they're ripping you off and they're millionaires, and they're struggling to survive like every average American or every average citizen of the world.
It's true. And it's funny because like you were saying, your team met on the Friday at 1:30 on Zoom until you did the event. You had never really met live and in person, even though we were, you guys were all local. The collaboration is so easy. I have a colleague, she's in Canada and another one in Florida, and we're trying to build like these mini workshops for people who are making under $100,000, because my feeling is to make 100 grand, well, at least in the United States, let me rephrase that. It's not that hard, but if you don't know what you don't know, of course it becomes hard, right? So we're trying to build these very affordable mini workshops to help those small business owners get to that 6-figure. And then obviously when you learn the skill, you can continue to scale beyond that. That wouldn't have happened. Canada, New Jersey, and Florida. Like that would have been impossible. And doing conference calls would have been awkward. And so we're creating at a quicker level because of this, visual collaboration, sharing screens, having live documents that we can edit together. All of those things, Dale, when I started my business 20 years ago, the internet was a nothing. I mean, you had an email. We didn't really have websites per se. It wasn't a mandatory thing. So just fascinating. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing? And I'll say in New Jersey, because I know that's your expertise, but now that you have this bigger vision on a more global scale, because you're dealing with entrepreneurs all over the world, what are some of the challenges that you see in this next, decade?
Well,
or even the next 5 years?
I often say is that if every politician in the world had to have made payroll, this would be a very different world. Because they don't understand. They don't understand how hard it is for small businesses to make sure they survive, especially in a pandemic. And so a lot of the public policy goes against the success of entrepreneurs. The paperwork requirements are the same in small businesses and big businesses. The taxes, there should be major tax breaks for small businesses that don't exist. The reward for hiring local people, doesn't exist. And so, giving back to your local community, there should be a greater reward for, most of the little leagues and other things are funded by local small businesses, not the big businesses that go on TV saying we're giving away $10 million, but that's like $10 to a small business. So those challenges of not understanding their value to society, and that's where the Rothman Institute comes in, where I've written over the last year and a half about 15 different articles about entrepreneurship and other things. We're doing that. We give a lot of presentations every Friday. We have, we have a session. I do the TV show. But some of the other things too is, small business folks are so focused on making money, so focused on surviving, that they don't have time to take your course. They don't have time to learn about sales. They don't have time to learn about leadership, or forget technology, and so many of them don't even have websites yet, let alone be on social media. So, and again, this is where I think government could be helpful to really help support the training of these folks so they can get some technical expertise to be successful. So they need someone like you desperately.
It's sad too, because, I meet entrepreneurs all the time and they meet me and they think, oh, I need to talk to you. And then, and my program isn't even expensive, but the response I get often is, Con, because they have so many balls in the air and it falls on us, right? The business owner. It's not like you could delegate certain things you should be delegating. And we're learning that too, but certain things you really can't delegate. So when you have 20 balls or 20 things that you're working on, like website message on your marketing messaging, getting up social media campaigns, all of those things take time. And you have to be the editor and the writer for a lot of that content. It's not like you can just hire a VA to write your content. Like you could never hire someone to write your articles, maybe to get it going, but then it's got to be your voice, right? You have to go back and edit it. So there's certain things we have to do. And that's where I think people will say to me, I know I need this, and I know the return on the investment is going to be exponential. I literally don't have the bandwidth right now. And that breaks my heart because I think, but if you put some of the other balls down, focused on bringing revenue in, you could do that other stuff with less stress in your life. But when you're in the throes of growth and just finishing those projects, you just can't look at anything else. We physically, mentally, emotionally don't have the bandwidth. I feel bad.
It really is tough. And then there's another thing too that's very hard is really succession. So we would do a lot with family businesses.
Yeah.
And I wrote this book on influence called Intelligent Influence, and the idea that influence really controls everything and how you view what's in the media, what's in movies. And, there's a mindset among young people is that it's not about building a business. It's about building a business, doesn't have to be profitable, then having Google buy your business. And so a lot of the next generation doesn't really understand the value of a family business, of sustaining the business, of sustaining jobs, of growing the business. You don't have to be a sexy internet company to sell. And so there's a mindset of understanding this idea of entrepreneurship that I think a lot of folks, and especially the younger generation, don't quite get.
It's interesting you mentioned the succession planning. My business had just always been raising my kids, right? It was the business, make a living, keep working, right? Get on that hamster wheel, keep pumping out the money, Connie, right? Because whatever college and hockey and whatever was going on in their life. And now they're adults, right? They graduated college and they're showing an interest in my business, which fascinates me because I would never have said anything. It's my jam. It doesn't have to be their jam, but one is a finance major, one is a marketing major. And this was fascinating, Dale, when my little guy went to University of Delaware, was in his last year, and they did a lot of hands-on work rather than just taking classes. Like they were creating businesses and stuff like that. And he called me and he goes, can I use your business and talk about maybe I can make some ideas on things that you should be implementing as a small business? And I was like, sure, I love that idea. So he would bring me through as he went through the class, and I would say, oh, I'm already doing this. And then he would say, well, Mom, have you thought about that? And I'm like, no, but I like that. I think I have to add that. What does that mean? So he started teaching me. Well, now fast forward, they're both kind of interested. So my rule is you got to still work for someone for a few years. You have to know what it's like to show up, be part of a team, maybe work for a boss you don't love, all of those life skills that are just really important foundationally. And now in the next decade, I'm going to try to build, I'm going to build, let me rephrase that. I'm going to build legacy business. So if they really do want to take it over, they can. And if they don't, I'll be in a position to sell it. Never thought about that before, Dale. It's fascinating.
Yep. And what it takes so much to build a business from the grass up. Right. Yeah. It takes blood, sweat, and tears. And so I think young people initially, because my daughter's saying, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Then they start to see the real world and they realize Mom's already laid the groundwork for this business.
Yeah.
I can still make it my business. It doesn't mean that I have to be her business. I got to have my own, my own son, I want to do that. But family businesses are really just wonderful ways to make sure your kids are successful. They're having a great time. They have fun and they can take the business. There's a business, actually, one of our businesses, Charles E. Green, is out of Newark. It's 170 years old, 7 generations. They make, believe it, and the amazing thing I'm learning, Connie, of the businesses that I've worked with that have been around a long time, they'll make one thing. So they make the metal around paintbrushes, and they do it better than anybody else in the world. And that's 170 years. But they have the 8th generation are 2 daughters. And the daughters say, so they have this they're going to continue to do that. But they've started a cosmetics business. So they actually will do kind of custom cosmetic. If you want to start your own cosmetic lines, they're going to do that. So you have this factory, then you go upstairs and you see this, it looks like Chanel, a Chanel floor. So it's, and so you see that and why America doesn't, or the world doesn't celebrate these kinds of things, because it's wonderful. It's families staying together at a time when families are splitting apart. It's generating jobs, it's building the economy. And so you can see I'm enthusiastic about these entrepreneurs as the way out of all this mess we're in, the divide in the country, the economic challenges. So, until I die, we're going to continue to push this. And
You and me, Dale. I'm telling you, we met and we were like, we got a lot of things we got to get done, right?
a lot of energy between the two of us.
Well, and I think also philosophically we come from the same perspective, of giving back and being innovative and creating jobs. And it's funny because even my VA, she started a VA agency now. As people heard me, oh, I have a VA, and I went to her and I'm like, do you have friends? Do you, can you help my friend out? And all of a sudden, 12 people later. And so I said to her, we need to build an infrastructure for you to create a business so that you can do some of the training for the VAs, right? And you kind of be the liaison, and then they take over from there, and you continue educating your VAs as you learn things to keep them relevant. And you have to see she's building a thriving business. She's 21 years old out of the Philippines. I love it. Like, I feel like, it's my responsibility. And of course it's not, but she works so hard for me. I think, no, we have to build your empire too, as we're building mine. Right. So yes, I'm passionate about this too. And I get really excited when young people will approach me and say, hey, I have a business idea. What do you think? And then I'll tell them, these are great. Here are some holes. Go back, do research, see what you can do. Who do you need? And then we have Rothman Institute that helps these small businesses as well. We're out of time, Dale, but just really quickly, what do you think the future of entrepreneurship is, especially because like this is your zone of genius?
Well, and I'm saying, as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about exactly that, and I'm thinking that why don't we create, Connie, again, like Tony Robbins and all these other folks, we need to create an entrepreneur kind of event, maybe in New Jersey, maybe somewhere else, where folks come together, they get expertise, they're motivated, they're pumped up, they feel, because what I'm learning, especially at our rewards, they don't know each other. It's like this, they said, this is the first time I'm talking to people just like me who are in this business. And so maybe with your energy and my energy, we can do a conference and bring entrepreneurs together and just about entrepreneurship and all the details. And that's where I think the future is. I think the future is up to us. I really think those of us that believe this, really have to advocate with our friends and legislature and the governor's office and others and say, hey, folks, it's not about not being against anything. It's being about this segment of society, which can really help many, many people. And so that's where I think it is. I think I'm very optimistic. I really am.
I am too. Isn't that funny? I am too. Again, the energy of these kids and the lack of fear, their courage, that's the better word. They're so courageous. I think that's the energy that we need to also continue to tap into, or bring into our businesses to get that injection of those new ideas, like my son did with the class, right? He was learning, but he's young, he's creative, doesn't have all of the clutter in the head that you and I have, Dale, right? From life. It's crazy. So, and as he was saying ideas, I'm like, oh, I really like that. We could do that. That's a great idea. Tell me more. Can you do more research for my business? And, isn't that a fun conversation to have with your kids too?
It really is. It really is. And so again, I want to thank you so much. It's wonderful being on this show.
Loved having you.
Continue to work together.
Yeah.
And make them change. My view is it's not even about money. It's about making history. My view is, let's make history. Let's change the world for the better while we're here.
I'm with you, because we're going to have grandkids and great grandkids. What kind of legacy are we leaving them? Forget about the business, right? What kind of world are we leaving them? We certainly want to leave them one of harmony, right? And peace and love, not, divide and anger and all those things that we're facing now. Absolutely. Guys, listen to me. I know you need more Dale in your life. I need more Dale in my life. He's stuck with me. He knows it now, right? So if you have a question, please email him directly at Caldwell@FDU for Fairleigh Dickinson University.edu. I will post that in the show notes. Additionally, there's a website I'd love for you guys to go and check out, see where you might fall if you're on the VA side, a small business side, a family business. Again, the resources that Dale is building and continues to build is exponential. So that website is fdu.edu, and then it's /academic/Centers Institute Rothman. I will put it on the show notes so you guys can find Dale. Yeah, easy peasy. That's how we roll here. So Dale, thank you again. such important work, such important work. Thank you for taking time and talking to my people. I'm so appreciative.
Well, just honored to be here, and I look forward to hearing from folks out there. So take care. Thank you.
Absolutely. We need sponsors. You heard the man here on my show. We need sponsors to really support these new entrepreneurs coming up and support the program so that we could do more and help more and give the education that's needed. So again, please reach out to Dale D. Caldwell at fdu.edu and just pick his brain and maybe brainstorm and collaborate and see what magic can be created together. So Dale, I look forward to working with you in the future, and I'm going to be on your TV. I'm going to be on TV, everybody. I'm so excited. I have to wear good makeup that day. Maybe I have to go to the Newark place where the ladies are making the makeup. It's all in the family, right, Dale? I love it. Yes. Thank you again, my friends. It's always good seeing you. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover. No matter where you are on your career, your professional career, or in your client journey, working with your clients, I hope my guests and I provide some tips, strategies, and ideas. For me, it's about, you heard it. That's great. You're learning it. That's great. Start applying, practice, take some of the skills and tips that we talked about today and maybe implement them into your business, or reach out to Dale and ask questions about how to start a business, whatever it might be for you. But again, I hope these tips and ideas are implemented immediately. Action creates reaction, which creates the results. And Dale and I are all about the results. So again, take one tip, one idea, and utilize it to your advantage. You do nothing, nothing's going to change, right? Thank you again, Dale. Thank you all for joining me on Changing the Sales Game podcast with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I truly am honored to have you all here weekly with me. And again, I hope our topics and our ideas just shift your perspective ever so slightly. So maybe you see the world in a new way or from a different framework. Magic starts happening. Thank you again, Dale. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see everybody next week. Have a great one.